So we are live. Welcome in everybody to yet another CarrGuy and SixFan show. Here we are at season 3 of the CarrGuy and SixFan show. And of course, if this is your first time, you have a little bit to learn about what to expect here, but it is a joint effort between my channel, Straight SixFan, where I like to focus on budget-minded, relatable, creative builds, a little something I like to call offbeat hot rodding. But down below us is the other part of that, this operation.
Yeah, my name is Jason, and my channel is Old Car Auto Guy. I almost forgot who I was there for a second, but welcome to the live stream. And it's another Thursday evening. We've got a chat room full of people, and we want to, in a few minutes, take advantage of acknowledging everybody that's in there. But before we do that, Grant, why don't you introduce our guest for this week?
Yeah, so as you guys know, one of the initiatives here for season 3 is to bring on more guests. Because obviously a core part of not only do we talk cars here on the CarrGuy and SixFan show, but we like to talk YouTube growth hacks, YouTube growth strategy. So we couldn't do probably any better for season 3 than to bring on our guest, Dan Currier of Creator Fundamentals. Dan, why don't you say hi to the crowd and tell us a little bit about your channel and what it's about?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's good to be a guest here. So my name is Dan Currier. I run a YouTube channel called Creator Fundamentals that's focused on helping you simplify YouTube by providing tips, tech, and tutorials that can give you the information you need to learn how to grow and build an audience here on the platform.
All right. Well, with that, Jason, did you want to run through some of the crowd who you're seeing?
Yep, absolutely. So just for people who are just jumping into the stream, I have put Dan's channel link in the chat, so you guys can go over and check that out after the show, and make sure you hit him up for some live feeds there on Wednesday evening, and we'll get into that as well. So as we roll through the chat, we've got Eford Garage, the Miniac, America Bumper to Bumper, Brian Beeler, who is a new one in the house, and it sounds like he's been sent over there by Judd. And we've also got, let's see here, Trucker Dave and Rust Belt Mechanic. So far, welcome, guys. If you haven't hit that thumbs up button on the way in the door, please go ahead and do so now. And don't forget to share this live stream out with your social media and tell everybody what you're up to this evening.
Yeah, so we have a special opportunity with Dan as our guest, but as you guys know, for the usuals, we do start off with a little automotive chat before we get deep into growth strategies, since this is an automotive niche channel. And so, Dan, I'll let you kind of take this two ways, because you can talk a little bit about maybe your start on YouTube, but before there was Creator Fundamentals, I know was the average Dan. And I know one of the big, probably some of your more viewed videos through the average Dan when you were starting off on that channel was kind of the RV life. So I ask you, one, you can talk a little bit about your start on YouTube, or maybe bite on what was your favorite tow rig for your RV? Which vehicle probably performed the best as a tow rig for the RV life?
So, yeah, I had the average Dan when I started out on that channel. As we were talking about earlier, I actually started doing, car repair videos just on the vehicles that we had in our family, and trying to, basically anytime I had a problem to solve, couldn't find a video on it, I'd work my way through the problem and make a video on it. One of the things that came up while we were doing that is a camper remodel. We bought a 1984 Fleetwood Wilderness, and kind of gutted part of it and kind of rebuilt that up. As far as tow vehicles go, so one of the things that was important to us, because I have 2 kids, and at the time we had 3 dogs, and so I needed a vehicle. I couldn't just go the easy route and grab a pickup that obviously is going to be more than sufficient for towing. So I had to find an SUV. And one of the things that you discover pretty quickly is that the range of SUVs and their tow capacities are kind of limited, especially as you get up to, some of the larger travel trailers. We have a 2004 Jayco Whitehawk, and I believe it's like 8,500 pounds or 8,000 pounds. And trying to find the vehicles that can tow that, especially in the SUV class, is kind of limited. So originally we had a Ford Expedition that did the job well, but then the engine in that started to fail, And before it went completely, we actually went out and bought a Nissan Armada. When you actually start doing the research and find vehicles that can tow that amount of weight, it's basically the Expedition, the Armada, and then a handful of I think like the GMC Yukon. Yeah, so I would say so far, the Expedition and the Armada are pretty good for doing that, and it allows us to be able to fit our family and the dogs without throwing. We have a few hour commute when we go camping, and can't put the dogs in the back of the pickup truck.
Yeah, so Dan, one of the things that we like to also find out from our guests as part of this show, as you know, it is automotive, is tell us a little bit about your first vehicle. What was the first vehicle you ever owned?
So when I first got into, when I first got my license, we used to, oh my goodness, we had so many Chevrolet Chevettes, and we used to buy these things. You could go out and buy a Chevette for like $100, and you could buy 2 or 3 of them, and we would literally buy them, line them up, and then piece a car together that worked. In fact, probably the best car story I have has to do with a Chevette, because apparently I wasn't the most responsible car owner as a teenager, and I had a Chevette that things would just start breaking off of, and I just kind of let them go. So I remember one time I was playing volleyball at the YMCA, and I dislocated my shoulder, and a kid I went to school with he was there with his father, who was a doctor, who like treated me, helped me get my shoulder back in place, and offered to drive me home in my car. Well, this car the brakes didn't work anymore. I had an emergency brake that I would literally pull up to stop the car. One of the wipers had broken off, so it was gouging an arc in the windshield. There was a 1 foot by 1 foot hole in the passenger side, so you could literally see the ground when you drive. And the turn signal stick had actually broken off, so you had to reach inside the console to actually turn on a turn signal. So it was quite the experience to not only be in excruciating pain, but to tell my fellow students, Dr. Dad, every time he reached for something that it wasn't there anymore. So, but yeah, I drove a ton of Chevettes because they were so easy. I could, change an alternator in 20 minutes, and it was like a Lego car. You could put one together in no time.
That's awesome. Well, Dan, before we get exactly off the car conversation, we'll wrap it up with one more car question, I guess, and then we'll get on to what we really want you to pick your brain on. Of course, YouTube growth strategy, growing faster and smarter. So, if money was no option, what car, past or present, or maybe even future, would you be kind of indulging in?
Oh man, that's a good one. I probably, there's so many good choices. I'm not really if we go past or present, I'm kind of partial to an Aquamarine 57 Chevy. If I was going to go something modern, it would probably, I've kind of grown pretty attached to nice oversized SUVs. So I don't know if that would be like a tricked out Expedition. Probably something in there. I know there's a few of like the luxury brands that actually have comparable tow capacities. I think like is it Infinity? Might be like the Infinity Q80 or something like that. I might go with something like that, because we'll always have to tow the camper and but yeah, I would probably say those two are probably pretty good choices.
Money's no object, and he's still trying to be the perfect vehicle. They're thinking about his family. Isn't that sweet? So, Dan, as we kind of move into the show, I guess this is the part where we focus on our guest, and we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to really know more about you as a YouTube channel and what it is you actually do for people as part of your channel. So why don't you help us out and talk a little bit about creator fundamentals, and the reasoning why you created that and what you're doing with it now.
So when I originally got started on YouTube, as I mentioned, I had the channel The Average Dan. One of the things that I started doing to quote unquote take it seriously is to kind of immerse myself in the community, because I think community is really important. It's really huge, as you've seen here with your live streams, of developing that community, getting to know people who are in your niche and also fellow creators who are trying to do exactly what you're doing. When I did that, I was a member of a Facebook group called the Small YouTubers Community. And as I started to, do the taking it seriously thing, and I found there were, tips and strategies that actually produced results, I tried to share that. And what I quickly learned is it really wasn't the right, venue or, channel for me to do that on The Average Dan. So I was probably, a couple months into that. I think it was 4 months into that on The Average Dan, where I'm like, this stuff is really good. I'm going to create a channel dedicated to it. So I had this crazy idea that I was going to start a YouTube growth channel at zero. As you can imagine, people had all kinds of stuff to say about that because everybody's got an opinion. It's kind of like something else everybody has, but you just kind of have to deal with it. And that is how it started. And the goal was simply to share the lessons I was learning with people to help them do the same thing that I was trying to do. And that's actually my tagline on Creator Fundamentals now is, it's my mission to simplify YouTube so you and I can grow together. And that's ultimately what the goal is on that channel. There's hundreds of videos out there that focus on everything from how to upload a video to how to promote on social media, how to make custom thumbnails, depending, any topic that can help somebody who is somewhere on that journey to trying to grow their channel and be successful on the platform. I try to cover. Sometimes it's mindset, sometimes it's tactics, but I really try to focus in more on the the new to moderately involved person, or, somebody who's been in there a while, but they're trying to learn what that next step is to kind of take their channel forward, is what you're going to find on Creator Fundamentals. Above and beyond that, I have a free YouTube course called at tubejumpstart.com, which just kind of packages everything into what I see as kind of the core elements to get people started when they really have no idea where to look first. And then, also, I am hosting a conference in Albany, New York called People of Video, which kind of takes a similar audience and gives them the opportunity to meet face-to-face in person, with hundreds of other content creators who are all trying to do what they're trying to do. And, it just helps you grow even more to be able to be face-to-face with those people and learn the things they can't put on their channels because they don't perform well, and all that stuff. So, it's just all creator centric and trying to give people the tools they need to succeed.
Well, I know you have, even the past probably, I don't know, half dozen uploads, you have that range that you just talked about, anything from nuts and bolts about like a simple way to do a thumbnail, all the way to kind of your journey of reflecting on your last year and how you've been able to add an extra 10K to your household income just from this little game we call YouTube. But you also talked about, just there's that journey of starting from scratch with Creator Fundamentals. Maybe talk a little bit about timing and how timing was of the essence, because I believe I discovered you through the adpocalypse hysteria, and how maybe those two things overlapped or lined up, and how you're able to leverage some of that.
Yeah. So what you really start to understand about YouTube is kind of driven by two different ways to get attention. There, obviously, YouTube is the #2 search engine, so searchable content really has a strong place on the platform because, like, whether it's trying to fix a car or solve any other problem or figure out how to do something, people go to YouTube to answer questions, to solve problems. And when you position yourself in such a way that you are that answer to the question or the problem that they're having, that can be very powerful. On the flip side of that, we have what's called trending topics or trending content, that content that gets suggested by YouTube that'll be shown next to other videos that you're watching based on what YouTube thinks you're going to want to watch next. In my case, timing comes really into play in that, especially when you're dealing with trending topics, because when you're first to cover something that has a lot of attention, that is a very strong way to have one of your videos really explode. YouTube did the wonderful thing that I saw coming, because back a couple of years ago, you used to have to get to 10,000 views to monetize your channel. People were getting to 10,000 views on YouTube, and they weren't being monetized. And a month went by, 2 months went by, and people were commenting on my channel, "Hey, what's going on? I have met the requirement, but I'm not getting approved." And I was like, something bad's coming. So ultimately, what happened was they ended up changing that. So you need 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours on YouTube to join the YouTube Partner Program. Well, luckily, because I had invested so much in the community of YouTube, I actually had one of my viewers reach out to me, because they saw the news first when YouTube finally dropped that bombshell that they had changed the requirements. And it caught people off guard, and it upset a lot of people. So the two things that really were strong in that case is you had timing, being the first to cover something, and also emotion. When you can tap into a really strong emotion, that can be really, really powerful on YouTube. So because somebody notified me right away, and I had done some other things in terms of efficiency, meaning my camera was all set up and ready to go, as soon as I heard that news, I literally walked in front of the camera, turned it on, and I made a video covering that topic. And rather than do what I knew everybody else was going to do in this niche, which was like, oh, just suck it up and keep working hard, I came out, with an attitude and basically said, YouTube screwing small YouTubers, and, and kind of met everybody where I knew they were. I had 2 channels. Both of them were going to lose monetization with this policy. Well, Creative Fundamentals hadn't even got there yet. The Average Dan lost monetization as a part of that process. So I had immediately decided, rather than, just doing what I knew everybody else was going to do, we'd meet the emotion. And, kind of in that video, I walked people through the emotion and let them know at the end of the video that things were going to be okay. And then the following day, I actually released what I would quote a how-to video, which was how to get to that 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. And those videos really transformed my channel. I went from what probably was 750 subscribers before that video took off. That first video did like 50,000 subscribers. The second video, or not 50,000 subscribers, 50,000 views. Yeah. The second one is now up over 550,000 views, and it's brought like 16,000 subscribers to the channel. So yeah, when you really tap into emotion and you have something like that happens in your niche, if there was some major announcement regarding cars, or, if you're covering new cars and that kind of thing, and you're the first person to get out there, and you can really, tap into that emotion. Maybe Chevy comes out and says they're not going to use the bow tie anymore, as a logo. Those kind of things that everybody's going to have an opinion about. Getting out there first and addressing it before anybody else can mean that you're going to be the one video everybody finds when people rush to YouTube to find out more information.
Yeah, Dan, and not just from your quick ad hoc type live videos, but you also, or even your scripted videos that you do as help for people. You also have a live stream that you promote on Wednesday evenings. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So every Wednesday night, we do what is essentially a YouTuber hangout. It's every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. The goal of that is simply to create a forum where people can ask follow-up questions relating to content, ask any YouTube questions about their channel or about YouTube in general, new policies, whatever happens to come up. But I basically let the audience kind of guide that conversation. Sometimes, it just goes all over the place. It's basically whatever is on the mind of the people who attend the live stream at that time. And it's just an opportunity to, like I said, you create those videos, and yes, you have the comment section. I don't think YouTube does the greatest job of creating a good conversational tone in the comment structure on YouTube. So having that live stream, the opportunity to ask a question, get an answer is really powerful in helping to deepen that relationship you have with your audience, and also get them the information they need to move forward.
Well, I know also you'll do some channel reviews, because I know I've had my channel reviewed by you at one point in time. You helped kind of drive home the importance of. So I had my logo or my banner art, but having your tagline, kind of what to expect, because that's your first impression in a lot of instances. So I know you do that a little bit as well. Before we move on to the next topic, I did want to pause. We did try to acknowledge new people jumping into the stream. So I know Johnny from Jeep Things Outdoors has jumped in. Eric Stenberg, probably the oldest guy in here from, you probably have the best attendance record. So welcome, guys. I know a couple of you have joined in. Kip, and I don't remember if we ever said hi to you, but Craig Durbin as well. Dan, for 2020, now that we have a month in the books, what is probably your number one topic or FAQ that's coming up here in 2020 as it relates to growing on YouTube?
So I think like one of the things, and it's going to be different for every type of niche. For me personally, I think revisiting some of what tends to happen on YouTube is videos have, even your evergreen content does have a bit of a shelf life. So what you'll find, and this is a content strategy that can really work for anybody, is the idea that just because you've made a video on a specific topic doesn't mean you can never revisit that topic. For me, especially, YouTube is going to promote newer content over older content if everything else is equal. So going back and looking at the content that you made in the past that has been successful and providing a fresh look at that this year, maybe something that you made in 2018 that did well, but it's kind of faded off now because it just kind of, it loses its attention by YouTube because of its age. You have the opportunity to revisit it, bring out that content fresh, cover things that are the same, address any changes, and really provide that updated perspective to people. So, aside from that, I mean, obviously with me, I am, pushing the conference, and the conference has taken a bunch of my time. But the other big thing that I'm trying to incorporate in my channel in kind of a new direction is kind of that tech and tutorials, which tips and tutorials are certainly something I've done, but I want to integrate more creator tech related content to be able to show people, how the proper settings on their DSLR, how to use the Logitech C920 to create better live streams, that kind of stuff that I think is just practical information that I haven't previously covered on the channel.
So Dan, like I said before we went live, a lot of our channel or a lot of our chat have their own channel, and some of them are quite young and they're new and they're growing at a slower pace. But let's say I'm Joe Smith. I want to create a channel about Christmas trees. What's the number one thing that you're going to give me for advice to creating and starting up a brand new YouTube channel?
The number one advice is just start making videos. It's a long-term process to be able to create a successful channel. And one of the things that people get hung up on the most is thinking that they don't know what to say, or they don't know how to make a quality video. But it's kind of a learn on the job kind of approach. So you really want to just say, hey, I'm going to start a channel. I'm going to start making content. Everybody's first videos are going to suck. And that's the case for, 99% of the people, unless you're, Peter McKinnon or somebody who comes in, as a videographer professional. I think I might have put an extra O in there, but videographer, then, it's just not going to be, it's not going to be the best, but you make it, you watch it after you've made it, and you say, hey, that lighting could have been a little bit better. I'm going to try to fix that for the next video. And you just keep approaching it that way, little improvements over time, rather than this isn't good enough, I'm not going to upload it. Because if you get caught up on that, then you never make progress, and you really need to get in the habit of putting up video after video to get comfortable with the process and learn how to make better content.
Yeah, and I know that was a tidbit I picked up on one of your recent videos. You talked about, do go back and watch, do pick on just one thing, and do try to improve on one thing. And I think that struck home with me, because oftentimes, sometimes you get to a certain age and you're channel life, and it's like you get into the grind, and it's like, well, I got to make the deadline, the upload deadline. And I know a lot of people say plan, but within the automotive niche, it's a little hard because sometimes it's like, yeah, I know I want to do this one task, but you might only get in the whatever time you have. My days, Sundays, you might, that rusty bolt, hangs you up. So like your best, so planning for me, and I think for the automotive niche, is really tough to do in almost, I mean, I generally know what I'm going to go work on a Sunday.
Right.
But so that was really good advice to me hearing you say that, because it's like, I know sometimes I kind of let myself get into a plateau of, because I'm just putting content out. And so you have to be critical of yourself. You have to improve somehow. And the way you broke it down by just saying, hey, just pick on one thing and don't get off it until you know that you've corrected that one thing. I really like that one.
I also think, like, in that case, because I'm pretty sure that every car I've ever worked on always has a rusty bolt to deal with. There's always that one thing that takes an otherwise quick job and turns it into a painful process. But, if I was going to go back and give myself advice on those, is take that opportunity, that struggle to make another piece of content, record additional content, and be like, okay, I'm not only going to put out, how to do whatever this project is, but I'm going to figure out how to deal with this rusty bolt, and I'm going to make it its own video. Going and approaching those, because those are the things that people are looking for the most. It's like, there's nothing worse than you go to YouTube and you find a how-to video and they make it look like it's the simplest thing in the world. And then you try to do it and you hit, you can't get to they're like, oh yeah, just take out these two bolts, and, no human can put their hand in that spot where it lives. And that's just the reality sometimes, especially when people want to make their videos so perfect, they cut out all the imperfections, which make the project look much easier than it is. But if you kind of embrace those challenges and you either run with them in the content and give people that extra information, or make it a whole new piece of content, then you just have that opportunity to add that much more value, and your audience is going to appreciate it.
Yeah, and Jed Scott is in the chat, and he's saying something that we've said time and time again, is, if you're going to do YouTube, do something that you're passionate about, because regardless of whether it's helping people in the community of growing their YouTube channel, whether it's, working on old cars or whatever it happens to be, if you're passionate about it and you find it interesting, you're probably not the only one. Right. So build on the passion. Do what you do what you love, and it will come naturally. There's a lot of guys who say, I just don't think I can get in front of that camera and talk. But at the end of the day, all you got to do is talk about what you're passionate about. And if you know what you're talking about, you'll succeed.
Right. And make content for yourself, in the sense that instead of trying to make content where you're trying to figure out who might watch it, figure out what you enjoy watching and find people that are just like you.
Yeah, I'm my biggest fan.
Dude, I see how so excited you get, Jason, for your own videos. It shows, man. But Dan, so part of our format is when we usually get to about this part of the show, Jason and I both kind of give a channel update to our subscribers, just kind of a peek behind the curtains, if you will, of what to expect coming up on our channels. We'll let you throw out a teaser as well, but we also want to take the opportunity to throw it out to the chat. If you guys have a question for Dan, start thinking of what those questions are. Jason and I will monitor that so we can get that answered for you guys. But yeah, so for me, as you guys know, it's time to bring the old Ford Fairmont back into the garage, and it's time to really double down and, as Sean Kinnell would say, punch fear in the face and really figure out what's going wrong with the brake system and just get that figured out so I can drive it when the weather gets nice. I don't want to dork around with this thing when spring rolls around. And then so it's that Sunday's upload, or well, not Sunday's upload, I'm on Wednesday now. We'll be kind of rolling the Fairmont back in the garage and seeing where we can get on Sunday. Jason, what do you got coming up?
Well, as some of the keeners in the chat have noticed, I tried to block myself a little bit from people not seeing the doors on the old truck, but you guys will notice I did get the doors on the truck this evening before the show started. But yeah, we're working on a couple of different videos in play right now. One of them is going to be a quick update video on where we are to date on the truck, as well as I mentioned it last week that we have solidified engine and transmission options for the truck as well. So that's what you'll get coming up very soon. Dan, there is a question in the chat, if I can find it again here, from Craig Durbin, who says, where do you find the auto edit and equipment? I think he's talking about audio edit equipment.
So I am not a big fan of if we are talking about audio, I'm not a big fan of editing audio. So what I try to do is I try to get the best quality I can when I actually create the video the first time. I know a lot of people will go in and they'll try to drop their background noise and stuff like that. But I think that there's a lot of things that you can do to create better sound from the get-go, whether that's, if you're filming on your phone, and the phone is any distance from you, you're going to have some quality issues there. You can fix that by going out and picking up a lavalier and moving it closer, closer to you on your lapel or something like that. Ultimately in my studio now, this microphone is something that I wanted personally for a really long time, and eventually YouTube paid for it. So I do recommend when people are, like trying to upgrade and improve their quality, that you focus on making the content, and eventually YouTube will give you the resources to be able to invest in your channel and do that sort of thing. But yeah, I would just I think it's Audacity is a free editor.
Yeah, I use that all the time for podcasting.
So I use that, and I don't recall off the top of my head what the Adobe version's called, but is it Audition?
I think that
Audition.
sounds right.
In the rare case that I actually edit audio, because you have to be really good to edit audio or it sounds really, really tinny. Like I said, I've focused on tweaking things on the input to get the quality as good as possible.
Go ahead, Jason. Oh, I was just going to ask Dan, do you have a channel update or anything you want to let the smaller crowd know?
Yeah, I mean, so Creator Fundamentals is going to essentially be more of those tips, tech, and tutorials. I have a whole list of videos that we're making this year. We're going to dive into a little bit about, the reality of how much money you make on YouTube. I did that a little bit in that video you mentioned with the $10,000. We're going to get into more hands-on tech, microphones and things like that, and cameras and camera settings, and how to move from maybe using your phone to a DSLR, and what all the settings mean, and how to use the fancy camera without just setting it to auto, those kind of things, to kind of give people those tools, and kind of give a little extra love to the intermediate people who are who have tackled the basics and are starting to they got some momentum and they're trying to move to the next level.
Yeah, and Dan, we're down to about 2.5 minutes here before we end the show. I want you to make sure that you have an opportunity to give a plug to your People of Video conference coming up in May.
Awesome. So, yep, May 2nd and 3rd, 2020, I will be hosting People of Video. It's a conference focused on helping you leverage online video to grow an audience and build your business. We're bringing in a number of industry experts, a lot from YouTube. If any of you follow How To YouTube, you may recognize some names: Brian G. Johnson, Roberto Blake, Nick Nimmin, Cody Warner. If you're on LinkedIn, Judy Fox is coming as well. And there's 21 different speakers that I somehow have packed into a 2-day event. So you're going to fill your notebook in terms of the information that you're going to be able to bring home and implement on your channel. Plus, the focus is making human connections. So it's not just so much about the people on the stage, even though there's a ton of them and they're highly successful, but it's the relationships that you're going to make with fellow attendees and being able to interact with the speakers and the attendees, creating those connections and networking, and just all the things that come from that. And, I've been blessed by all the many developments that have come from just simply meeting people in person at other conferences. And I'm confident that a lot of people are going to have that experience at People of Video.
Dan, I've got 2 more questions I want to try to work in from the chat real fast. First off, cost on the conference, and then lastly, Boost Rodeo asks, and then Jason, you just close it out when Dan is done. But Boost Rodeo asks, how critical do you think publishing frequency or set schedule is? He was weekly for a while, but that required sleeping 4 to 5 hours, 7 days a week.
So my philosophy is very strong on what I call being kind to yourself. YouTube is a long haul. It's a marathon. It's a 5-year plan. So I am honestly not really strong on the rigid schedule. If you do one video a week, try to do it once a week. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the same day. It doesn't have to be at the same time of day. I think all that stuff is just I mean, I guess for episodic type content where maybe people are coming, same bat time, same bat channel, trying to tune in to something, that can come into play. But I think generally speaking, you just do the best you can that fits into your schedule, and you try to remain consistent. That doesn't mean exact. It just means continue to put out content. If you have a day where you just aren't, you're just not feeling it, odds are it's going to show up in your content anyway. It's not going to be the best content that you can do. So give yourself a break, be kind to yourself, and, come back strong the next day.
Dan, thank you so much. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the other question that was in there in terms of the cost of the conference.
Yes.
Right now, attendee tickets are $349. But you guys let me know if you have people that are interested in your audience. I'll hook you guys up with a promotional code you can give to them. They can save $200 on that ticket.
Oh, perfect. $200 is a pretty big savings. Thanks so much, Dan, for being a part of this show. We were looking forward to this for a long time, having you be a part of that, seeing how, like we said before we went live, that, this is kind of where we both, Grant and I, got our start learning how to gain growth on our channel. So thank you so much. Thanks so much for sharing that with our group. And I know that a lot of those guys are going to appreciate that. And every week, guys, we want to make sure that you guys know next week is going to be another guest week. However, the guest will be our guest host. Grant will not be a part of the CarrGuy and SixFan show next week. So stay tuned for a special guest that will be joining me right here in my garage. Only he'll be on the camera. So it won't be that kind of live. Having said all of that, guys, next week, next Thursday, special guest. Thanks for joining the CarrGuy and SixFan show, Dan. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Stay focused on the windshield, guys, not the rearview mirror. We'll see you next week.